Welcome to JewishTV.media. We're going to be speaking today about Shabbos, the 7th day of the week. We're all Jews, we know what Shabbos is about. I often get a question from people, about secular people, about if Shabbos is about resting, why is it that I can't get into a fancy car and drive to shul with some classical music, even put on some air conditioning to feel comfortable? If Shabbos is about resting, that's what I should be doing. I'll rest much more than walking 40 minutes in the hot sun, sweating away. Or you're sitting late at night and you're tossing around in your bed trying to fall asleep, but you can't because you forgot to put on the air conditioning. One button, one press, and I'll have air conditioning and I'll be able to sleep a good sleep for the Shabbos. So why can't I prepare for Shabbos by rest on Shabbos by sleeping? And the answer to it is through a story that happened. There was a guy walking down the street and he sees a young boy crying on the sidewalk. He walks over to the boy, he says to the boy, "What's wrong?" The boy says to him, my parents passed away, I have nothing left. I was staying by an uncle, but he's not interested in having me anymore, and I'm on the street, I have nowhere to go. So this was a generous man, and this generous man decided to take him into his house. Took him into his house, looked after him, showered him, took care of him, gave him food, gave him clothes. Throughout years, he's looking after him till eventually the kid becomes a teenager. He paid for his school fees, sends him to university, pays for his university, for his degree. And the boy is doing great, and they have a very close relationship. He becomes like his adopted son. And he looks after him constantly. Eventually, he brings him into his business, big factory, he gets involved in the business. One day, the person decides, I'm going to travel the world. The old man is going to travel the world. He takes the adopted son and he tells the adopted son, I want you to run my business throughout this time that I'm sitting traveling the world. So he gives the boy to run the business and he goes out to travel. Back then, to travel the world wasn't like today you get on a plane. It was throughout boats, months and months on the ocean, and going and arriving at different places in the world and seeing all these beautiful sights. So 2 years go by, and eventually he comes back, he goes and he has a rest, and then he decides to go visit his business, his big factory. He walks to his factory, and as he's walking towards the factory, he can see the factory is developed, it's big. He went ahead and he renovated the place. He walks in, and in the entrance to the place, he sees his adopted son sitting there in a nice office, beautiful chair with his legs up, smoking his cigar, and he's talking on his phone. And glass windows on the glass walls, you can see through, and he starts waving to him already from far. The son is on the phone, doesn't pay attention. He arrives at the door of the office, and he says, hello, peeks his head in and says hello, and his son turns around and says, 1 second. So the old man says, what, does he not recognize me? Maybe he doesn't recognize me anymore because 2 years went by. Did I age so much? So he waits a minute, and eventually he gives him some time. He finishes the phone call. He gets off the phone and he says to him, yes, how can I help you, sir? And the guy says to him, what do you mean, how can you help me? Don't you recognize me? He says, who are you? How can I help you? Sure enough, eventually takes him throughout the business, shows him the factory and says, this is my factory. He says, what are you talking about? I'm your father. He says, I don't recognize you. I don't know who you are. I can't help you. Maybe you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And he walks out of there understanding that his adopted son is denying all the favors that he did for him. He's walking, he's devastated, he can't believe what just happened. He walks, on the way home, he stops by a very close friend. He walks into him and tells him the story. And the close friend tells him, you're a silly man. You never leave a business by someone for so long. They actually turn into thinking that this business belongs to them. This factory is theirs. What you should do is you should come in and visit once in a while. Walk in once a week, twice, once a month, you walk in and you remind him who's the boss. You sit down in the boss chair and you tell him to pick up things from the ground and you show him who's the big boss. But you didn't do that. So what happened, this guy forgot and he became the boss. Same thing God, when He put us in this world, He gave us to run this world. This big factory belongs to God and He gives us human beings to run it. Not animals, only human beings, because human beings can create. All animals cannot create, human beings can create. So throughout the 6 days of the week, we behave like the boss. We create, we're doing things, we're making things happen. On the seventh day, God comes to visit His factory. He's the boss today. We are resting. We're not resting a physical rest. We're resting from creating, from being the boss. That's why we don't work. We don't turn on anything, lights. We don't create on Shabbos. If you're walking down the street and a sensor light turns on while you're walking past and you didn't know about it, it's not a problem, because that even a cat can do. What we're not allowed to do is to create. If we remember that message, it's a simple answer to the question. The question, why don't we get into a car? Because if you get into a car and you turn on the music and you turn on the air conditioning and you drive, then you are acting like the boss of this world. God came to visit His factory. We're not the boss today. We sit aside and let God run the show. Like that, we remember that we're put into this world for a purpose, to serve God. And the 6 days that we work are 6 days that we work, but it's not our business. We're just running it like it's our business. Thank you for joining us and listening to us. Thank you very much. Have a good time.
JewishTV.media